Hello. Over the next couple of minutes, we are going to talk about suffering, but don't change yet, okay? We're going to look at Joseph as an example on how to respond to stress and anxiety. And as you all know, he had stress, he had suffering, right? So when we are going through these troubling times, it's easy for us to look to God and say, what did I do to deserve this? Or God, why are you abandoning me during these dark times? And again, we're going to look to Joseph as an example. But let me ask you this question. Have you ever tried to do the right thing, whether you're following God's will or whatnot, but even after doing the right thing, you were punished or suffered because of it? Well, this happened to Joseph. Uh, Joseph was sold into slavery by his brothers, and his master's name was Potiphar. Potiphar's wife made advances towards Joseph. And Joseph did the right thing. He ignored those advances, didn't act upon it. Yet she was hurt by it and made accusations, and he went to prison for it. And this can happen to us when we follow Christ, right? Because we live in a fallen world, a world that is at odds with Christ, his teachings, God, and his love. And Jesus warns us that we will be hated because we follow Jesus, because Jesus was hated. But going back to Joseph, after he was in prison, God remained with him and acted upon Joseph. And Joseph rose in ranks. In fact, he was the second in charge, second most powerful man in Egypt, the most powerful nation in the world at the time. And after he's been in power, he reconnects with his brothers. And his brothers are terrified. They're afraid that Joseph's going to hold a grudge against them and with his power, do something bad to them. But he reassures them here in Genesis chapter 50, verse 20 says this. It says, "You intended to harm me, but God intended it all for good. He brought me to this position so I can save the lives of many people. No, don't be afraid." So we see here that God can use suffering for the greater good. We're not always going to understand what that greater good. But fortunately, God is all-knowing. He's all-loving, and he sets things in motion well in advance before we can even comprehend what's going on. And this should comfort us throughout our suffering. So like Joseph, we must remain faithful to God, for God is faithful to us. It should bring you comfort knowing that we're not going through this suffering alone. And we need to be joyful knowing that God is always in control and he's all-loving. Because there will be suffering. Jesus warned us of this. Jesus himself suffered. So when I am suffering, I like to refer to Romans 8. Starting in verse 17, it says, "And since we are his children, we are his heirs. In fact, together with Christ, we are heirs of God's glory. And if we are to share his glory, we must also share his suffering. Yet what we suffer now is nothing compared to the glory he will reveal to us later." So, man, that is so comforting to me that no matter what we're going through now, no matter how terrible we feel right now, the blessings that we will receive through God because of our faith in Jesus will far exceed anything that we feel here. And that should give us hope, should give us joy, should give us confidence. Thank you for your time.